So closely related to our previous topic, this one is about observing CAP apps with OpenTelemetry, as OpenTelemetry is the kind of go-to standard now for observability. In this session, Stefan Henke from the CAP Java team will show us how CAP applications integrate with OpenTelemetry with both CAP Java and CAP Node.js. And yeah, his expertise lies in integrating multiple services with CAP from BTP. So Stefan, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Anna. Am I audible? Am I audible? Yeah. So yeah, thank you for the nice introduction. Hello and welcome from my side also to my session on observing CAP applications with OpenTelemetry. Before we go into after that, we will look into the specific features and functions that we support with OpenTelemetry in CAP. We will look at the Node.js stack as well as the Java stack. And last but not least, and that will actually take the majority of the time, we will take an existing CAP application and extend that to export OpenTelemetry data into SAP Cloud Logging Service. This is, yeah, a quick definition of OpenTelemetry taken from the official homepage. At the end, it's about an observability framework, which is first of all vendor neutral and open source. So if you decide for OpenTelemetry, you don't bind against a certain backend, so to say, to analyze the data. Secondly, OpenTelemetry supports the most important signals that you actually need to observe your applications, which are traces, metrics, and logs. And last but not least, the nice thing about OpenTelemetry is that it is supported by a long list of programming languages. So being it Java, Node, and you name it. Looking a bit into the details of the different signals, just to explain them. Most importantly, maybe a trace. So when you look at an application which receives incoming requests or consumes messages from a message broker, then a trace is actually the path that this request takes through your application. That request might maybe cross system boundaries. So it maybe starts in one microservice and is passed on to another microservice. And then we are actually talking about the distributed trace. Secondly, we have metrics, and metrics are actually something like measurements that are of a service state captured at runtime. That can be something like a CPU utilization or a memory consumption, but at the end, it can be anything that helps you in application development to understand the health and the performance of your application. And typically, the measurements are captured by so-called instruments or metric instruments, which then define some kind of metadata of the metric, like a name or the type, whether it's a counter or a gauge or something like that. And typically, then these measurements are transferred into the backend, and there you can do flexible aggregations and slicing and dicing of data. Coming to the CAP specifics. So what can you do with OpenTelemetry in CAP? You can basically attach OpenTelemetry support to any running or existing CAP application just by configuration means. On the CAP Java side, we leverage for that the OpenTelemetry Java agent. And in addition, we have a very thin and slim small Java agent extension library, which basically hides the whole complexity of credential handling, credential parsing, and configuration of the corresponding endpoints and all that stuff. On the Node side, we have a dedicated telemetry plugin, which you can add to your application. And that will also then, at the end, instrument code and hide the complexity of all the configuration that you have to do otherwise manually. That's a quick slide fully packed with overview of feature and functions. Backend-wise, we have support for Dynatrace, but also the SAP Cloud Logging Service, which I will show you in a second. Cloud Logging Service is fairly new service on the BTP, which was released last year. As you can imagine, it does not only support logging, but it also comes with support for OpenTelemetry. If you configure your CAP application for OpenTelemetry, then you get on both stacks, Node and Java, you get a lot of traces and metrics configured or populated out of the box, instrumented into your application. These are pretty generic ones, like for HTTP requests, but also for CAP-specific things. And last but not least, of course, whenever you want to extend the application, you are open to add your own traces, metrics via the standard OpenTelemetry API that is available for the programming language. That's it actually for the theory part. Now coming to the practical part. That is basically just an overview of the scenario, the demo scenario that I'm going to use from now on. So actually the whole application consists of two CAP services. One is implemented with CAP Java, the other one with CAP Node. The bookshop service on the left-hand side exposes a couple of entities like books or reviews on books, like you know them from Amazon, or orders and shipping addresses. And the shipping address is a little bit special in that context because it's not, so to say, part of the persisted model of the bookshop service, but actually the data is queried from the second business partner service on the right-hand side via our remote OData capability. And obviously, both applications are reporting into the same cloud logging instance so that we can nicely see the correlated data. All right, then let me switch over to my developer environment. So that's basically workspace in Visual Studio Code, which contains the application, which I have just shown to you. So in the BooPath folder, we have obviously the business partner application implemented with Node. And here in the SRV folder, we have the bookshop service implemented with CAP Java. And the very first thing I want to do now is basically take that application, configure it for OpenTelemetry, and then see the data in cloud logging. So let's start with the Node application. So what we have to do here, the steps basically start with adding a dependency to our telemetry plugin. And in addition, we have to bring some additional dependencies, and with that, basically, we instrument the code for certain metrics and spans. And in addition, I have to, further down here, I have to specify an additional property, which is this telemetry kind property, which tells our telemetry plugin that we actually want to export the data to cloud logging. So with that, the telemetry plugin will search for a corresponding cloud logging binding. It will take the credentials from there and configure the application accordingly to export and push the data to cloud logging. That's it for the Node side. Now let's do the same thing on the Java side. And here I actually have to configure this Java opts property in the MTA YAML. And with that, I'm basically attaching the OpenTelemetry Java agent to my application. That's taken from the SAP Java build pack that's already included there. So you don't have to bring it on your own. And secondly, I am configuring this Java agent extension library, which basically, as I said, takes care of the proper configuration of the Java agent. Then I have to tell the agent extension library that I actually want to export these two signals into cloud logging. So similar to the telemetry plugin on the Node side, Here then corresponding cloud logging service binding will be searched for and the Java agent will be configured. Then obviously I have to, of course, bind my application to a cloud logging service instance, which I do here under the require section. And similarly, I do that for my business partner Node application. And the very last thing I have to do here is I have to create under the resource section a service instance of cloud logging, where I have to pass this ingest OTLP property and set it to true to enable the cloud logging for OpenTelemetry. And that will then basically spawn ingestion endpoints on the cloud logging service so that it accepts OpenTelemetry's data. With that, I'm done with the configuration. I can build the application, I can deploy it, which for timing reasons I have already done to BTP. And then I can, basically execute requests against that application to see, collect data in the background. So let me quickly executing that request. Oops. Execute that again. Connect to Wi-Fi. Sharing scan. Now it's back, right? Okay, so I have just executed that request. Let me quickly explain the request. So that's a request on the bookshop application, which is basically an OData $batch request. And that consists of two logical pieces. One is a GET request on the orders endpoint, which basically just reads the orders from the local persistence of the bookshop. And secondly, I have this GET request to the addresses entity. And if you remember the diagram, this will actually do a remote call into the second business partner application to fetch the addresses from there. Having executed that request, there are a couple of things happening in the background. Trace data, span data, and all that is collected. And then now I can basically switch to the cloud logging instance to analyze the data. So this is the homepage or the initial screen if you log into cloud logging. And from here, I can basically navigate to the observability section, from where I can see all the traces that have been collected. So I see here a trace, which for a post request, that's exactly the one which I have just executed. From here, I can dig into the details of the request of the trace. I can see the involved services and how the time was distributed between them. And on the right-hand side, I can see the individual spans of that trace. So in that Gantt chart, you read it from the top to the bottom. You see the overall request here in the first line. And then you can also identify the two parts of the OData $batch request, the GET on the orders endpoint and the GET request on the addresses endpoint. And you can even further drill down into these pieces. You can see which CQN statements have been executed, that these have been transformed into SQL statements. And further down, you also see here nicely integrated in the GET addresses that this was dynamically generated the CQN statement, which, as we use the OData, remote OData capability, initiated a remote call into this business partner service here. So you can nicely see this integration of that request and how that went, so to say, on the business partner side. Okay, that's it. So much about traces. Let me quickly switch back to my IDE. And the next thing I want to show to you is actually how you can work with metrics and how you can create a custom metric basically in your CAP application. So as I mentioned, The application also serves reviews and allows people to just add reviews on books. And what I'm actually interested in is to see how many reviews have been created over time in the system. And what I have done here is basically just registered an after handler, which listens for this add review event. And whenever this custom handler is invoked, I'm actually increasing this review counter, which I'm getting here in this line. I'm increasing by 1, adding a couple of attributes, which at the end serve like dimensions, so that I can filter on them and aggregate on them. And yeah, that's basically what it does. And building that, running the application again and waiting for some time will then, of course, collect some data if people create reviews over time. And let me also show you how that looks in cloud logging. So in cloud logging, you can go here to the metrics explorer, which is part of this bigger content here, where you can also see, for example, JVM properties or JVM metrics for Java-based applications. Here nicely, you can see these diagrams. But what I'm actually now interested is my custom metrics. So I'm here, you can see all the applications, which are basically contributing metrics. If I scroll further down, I see the individual metrics, and here I see this review counter metric. So I can, for example, filter on that, and you see all the raw data, which are these measurements taken. And based on that, I can now also, for better visualization, I can create custom visualizations, which I have just done as an example. So here, that's a custom visualization for my review counter metric, which basically shows you all the ratings or the reviews that have been created over time within the last 15 minutes, grouped by the individual books. And with color code, you can also identify how many stars or how many star ratings have been given to the book. You can, of course, also filter into the data. So if you are interested only in 5-star ratings, then you can also do that and see the data accordingly. All right, with that, I'm actually done with the demo. Let me quickly switch back to the slides. Of course, you can try that yourself if you want. We have just released a new mission on the SAP Discovery Center. So you can just click into the Discovery Center, search for the name. There is obviously also a better link, which I have put to the next slide. So if you get the slides later, then you can also see that. Yeah, and with that, I'm actually done. So thank you for listening. And maybe to add, if you have any further questions, I will be available I think at 3 p.m. For Meet the Expert session. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to join then.